Welcome to Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. You are going to hear the stories from the eclectic life of a guy who is a professional counselor, a family man, a SWAT team chaplain, outdoor enthusiast, a guy involved with ropes, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a chaotic Jedi, and who is a recipient of an honorary doctorate from the University of Adversity. Using these stories, we take the facts lead to concepts, and from the concepts we make a variety of life applications. Just a caveat about the facts. Most of the time we will tell you the facts just the way it happened, but once in a while we'll give you the facts the way other people remember how it happened, and that usually includes a tablespoon of embellishment. No harm is meant, just good, clean fun for educational purposes. Please subscribe and share this with your friends or your enemies. It might help them to be better people if they listen. As always, we thank you for keeping up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Introducing the Bible degree with digital ministry. Paul used the marketplace and the synagogue to reach an expanded audience. We have access to the internet and social media. I once heard it said that when McDonald's introduced the drive-through window, they did not change the Big Mac, only how it was delivered. Faulkner University is now offering a new digital ministry track for their Bible degree. Faulkner's degree provides training in understanding and teaching the gospel, alongside training that will allow students to create quality digital content. Opportunities for evangelism in the digital spaces is unlimited, and this is innovative ministry education for our contemporary culture. One of the instructors is a 2-time Emmy-winning former ESPN designer. Members of the Church of Christ could be eligible for the full tuition Jack Zorn Scholarship in order to pursue this special area of study. For more information, contact admissions at faulkner.edu. That is admissions at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a digital partner with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. TKM Incorporated in Moss, Tennessee is a construction company that specializes in erosion control, seeding, and soil, hydroseeding, hydromulch, minor excavation, and silt fence. They also provide traffic control and construction signs. Their business is keeping people safe, but their passion, their mission, is they wish that all men could be saved. TKM has adopted the nickname the King's Men because as they serve you, they also serve the King. If they could provide any of their services for you, please contact them at 931-243-3958. That is 931-243-3958. Or you can contact them on the net at tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. That is tkminc2001 at twlakes.net. TKM Incorporated is a sponsor of Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, that is not the longest name in the Bible. It is second to Pele Yoetz El Jabbar Abi Adsar Shalom. The latter means wonderful in counsel is God the Mighty, the everlasting Father, the ruler of peace. The former, Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz, is basically a construct using two similar phrases that mean to quickly plunder. And the phrase to quickly plunder is repeated twice, and it's a prophetic warning of the plunder of Samaria and Damascus by the king of Assyria, Tiglath-Pileser III. Probably around 734 to 732 BC. Now, I've used the name Maher-Shalal-Hash-Baz in lessons, but probably not like you might think. Once I was at a retreat called Amplify. Amplify was an event organized and hosted by Paul Sperlin. Paul is one of the board members behind this group called Exposure Youth Camp. That's a camp that actually takes place in Huntsville, Alabama, every year around December 26 to 29. If you'd like to get on YouTube, you can find footage of the 2,000 plus kids singing in the atrium at the Embassy Suites, and their a cappella singing is just beautiful, with thousands of kids standing in these balconies and singing in this open air atrium. The Exposure Youth Camp, EYC, is probably one of the largest gatherings for students from the Churches of Christ, and is basically only rivaled or exceeded in attendance by the Lads to Leaders conventions that are held in several places on Easter weekend, and the Challenge Youth Conference, CYC, that is always the last weekend of February in Pigeon Forge. Anyway, this may be an early iteration of EYC. This is one of those large multi-church group camps, and I was in attendance, and I was actually one of the keynote speakers. And we were at this thing called Amplify, and the theme for the weekend was fight, finish, and keep. The phrase that Paul tells Timothy, I have fought a good fight, I have kept the faith, I have finished the race. I was one of the keynote speakers, and the other guy who was speaking with me was to speak on the two topics, fight and finish. Now, in each of his lessons, he used the keywords. He used the keywords as an acronym to make his points. Thus, in his first lesson, fight, FIGHT, had 5 points, and finish, FINISH, had 6 points. After a long weekend, a lot of staying up late, a lot of activities Friday and Saturday, it came my time to speak on Sunday morning. And I got up to the podium, and you could see that the kids had been up late Saturday, and they were basically ready to have church and go home. I said, please turn in your Bibles to Isaiah chapter 8, verse 1. I'll be using that as my theme. And the word that we'll use to outline my lesson is the name Mahar Shalahashbaz. A very sleepy young lady on about the fourth row just simply said, "Oh Lord," and dropped her Bible and notebook in the floor. I did not, in fact, speak using Mahar Shalahashbaz as an acronym. The other occasions where Mahar Shalahashbaz has crept into my lessons is when my dear friend Frances Smallwood is the sign language interpreter. I get up to speak, and I look around, and I see that she's working her magic, turning my words into American Sign Language. And I usually say, and just for a moment, let's look at the book of Isaiah, chapter 8, verse 1, the name Mahar Shalahashbaz. I'll pause while Frances spells this on her fingers. I now know what the sign blah, blah, blah looks like in American Sign Language. Frances was the owner of a business called Deaf Access, and she gave access to those who are hearing impaired by providing sign language interpretation for them. Now, she had this really cool niche market in that she'd gone through the rigors and the process of getting a security clearance so she could sign for the groups that were on the arsenal and groups that did work with NASA, missile defense, and the Department of Defense. Last fall, I was speaking at a lectureship, and Frances was in the audience, and she was going to be my sign language interpreter. But as I got up to speak, she stepped down, and I noticed that her son, Ryan Smallwood, one of my former students and a very effective young minister, had taken her place. Ryan grew up in a home with his dad and his grandparents using sign language. So, technically he's a native speaker. He's bilingual if you count ASL as a language. It was pretty neat to see this young man who had been my student, and he was now standing there helping me preach by taking my words and communicating them to people who could not hear my words. It's very fulfilling to see this fine young minister. We'd come a long way from "You're killing me, Smalls" to this young family man and a professional minister signing at my presentation. 2 episodes come to my mind when I think of my adventures with sign language or signing. One is when Frances asked me to present one of my workshops at the Alabama Institute for Deaf and Blind. And I was going to present this for a group of her fellow dactologists. I made it less than 50 feet into the room when Frances came up and said, "Word has spread not to shake hands with you." I was perplexed. She said, "Your grip has quite a reputation." Reminds me of the young grappler who told his wife, "Hey, when Mr. Lonnie grabs you, you feel like he's been shoeing horses since he was 4. She then grabbed my face right in my cheeks with her thumb and forefinger and shook my head from side to side. She said, "How's that for a greeting?" you do realize these people talk with their hands. The second episode actually occurred first. I was a very young youth minister, and I was singing songs in Vacation Bible School and doing the little hand motions that go along with the songs. I was singing "The Wise Man Built His House Upon the Rock." And I saw this little round chub face and these little eyes staring at me in confusion. This young man sat there and he stared, and he was not singing, and he was not doing the hand motions. The look in those little eyes just simply said, I do believe this man is an idiot. Well, it dawned on me these little eyes belonged to young Master Smallwood. He was not yet school-aged, but Ryan essentially is a native speaker of American Sign Language, having grown up in a household with deaf grandparents, and his father was also hearing impaired. The hand motions I was using to sing this little kid songs were made up by some well-meaning Sunday school teacher lady years and years ago, and I learned them as a kid, and I just carried them into my ministry. And what I was saying and what I was singing were not the same thing. In fact, I looked up, and according to Lottie L. Reicherhoff in the book American Sign Language, I was singing "The Wise Man Built His House Upon the Rock," but what I was doing with my hands said "Build, Make, House, Protestant." It may have been my imagination, and maybe Ryan had the smarts as a young man to know I wasn't actually trying to sign. Maybe the perplexed look on his face was he was more disturbed by my singing than my signing. But what happens? What kind of difficulties incur or occur when the signs we think we're using to communicate our wants, our needs, our love, our bids for affection, what happens when they get misinterpreted? What happens when we give mixed signals? We give the signs, and yet other people wonder what we meant. And we wonder why they didn't respond to the signs that we gave. It's probably because of mixed signals. Are we really communicating in a way that people perceive or understand? Do our signs make people wonder? Signs and wonder. We do exercises all the time with corporate groups where we'll have people, split up into pairs, and one person will wear a blindfold and the other person will lead them through a series of tasks by giving them directions or giving them instructions. And in every single instance, in every group I've ever done, at least one person in the room will give instructions to a blindfolded person by pointing at them. It's right there. Move over there. And they're pointing the whole time. And in this case, they don't even wonder at the signs because the other person is using signs that they can't even perceive. Ladies, men, do not get hints. I opened the door the other day leading to the garage on my way to work, and there on the two little steps leading from the house into the garage was a large black garbage bag. My first thought was not, I think she wants me to take the trash out. My thought was, challenge accepted. And I broad jumped the bag into the garage and then went to work. I may be thinking I'm giving you signs that I need your assistance. I may be thinking I'm giving you signs that I need your attention or your love. And yet I'm being misinterpreted either because I'm not using the proper language or you don't understand the language I'm using. Without doing a deep dive, I'll remind you to think and read about Gary Chapman's book, The Love Languages. We often use our own love language as gestures to tell people we love them and expect them to interpret that's how we want them to tell us that we are loved by them. It doesn't really work that way. The other thing to consider is how effective is it if it's instead of asking for your attention or your affection, I demand it by drama or manipulation. When I force you to pay attention, and I'm using that in the transactional sense, I do this or I do that or I act this way or I speak this way, and you have to pay the attention tax. It's not out of love, it's not out of interest, but because you've now demanded it. When I force pay others to pay attention to me, when they do pay the attention, it's not really a gesture of love, but it's out of obligation. And that does not build intimacy, that builds resentment and eventually leads to either withdrawal or avoidance. We make all kinds of gestures in communicating what we need or in trying to give others what we think they need. I say I love you, but I don't show it. If I say I respect you, but don't show it. If I say I value you, but I don't show it by investing time or energy. If I say it, and I don't match it with my actions, then what good is it? If I say it doesn't matter, and I act like it did matter by pouting or acting hurt, if my words and gestures don't match, if my words and deeds don't match, we are not in fact communicating. Well, technically we're communicating, but in a way that gets translated, and it gets translated, and the translation is not into a positive interaction. You see, if I act withdrawn, closed off, irritable, and you ask me what's wrong, and I say nothing, you already know better. But instead of trying to be a mentalist and figure out which one to believe, am I going to believe the words or am I going to believe the signs? Without making someone have to play that kind of game, why not just be honest and make the words and the gestures match? Saying one thing but meaning another is either a sign of deep immaturity, or you're being dishonest, or you're being manipulative, and it almost always creates confusion and usually leads to conflict. When words and behaviors don't match, we leave the other person saying, I don't understand that. We leave the other person saying, I don't know how to respond to that. See, there's a little lesson I learned from a little lady that signs, is that the words we use and the signs we give have to be interpreted the same way. Now, the exception to this might be in discipline. You see, children don't always get the message that we love them when we set limits on them, and they don't always understand what we're trying to say when we impose consequences, restrictions, or even old-fashioned corporal punishment. And that's why it's important that when we discipline our children, we do it as much as we can without being angry. But that's a deeper discussion for a different time. With that being the one exception, disciplining our kids and both people not actually being on the same page because children are too immature to understand those words and those gestures. That being the one exception, our words and our gestures must be seen the same by both people. Otherwise, what you think you said is not what I saw, and what you think I saw is not what you said. Don't just show me, tell me. Don't just tell me, show me. And it may be a good idea that in the end of it all, once you've said and once you've shown, you just simply ask the person, how did you interpret that? Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use two large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3Ws and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.